It started as one of those small, forgettable things, the kind of noise you barely notice when you're half asleep. A light tapping sound outside, like plastic in the wind, or maybe something brushing up against the wall. It was a little after 2 a.m., and I was already falling in and out when it pulled me awake just enough to notice it. Living in a ground floor apartment, I'm used to random sounds like that. People walk past at all hours. Cars come and go. Sometimes there are stray animals messing around near the building. Normally, I don't even bother checking. But this felt closer. Not out on the street or down the walkway, right outside my window. I stayed in bed for a minute, staring at the ceiling, listening carefully, waiting for it to happen again. When it didn't, I reached for my phone and opened the security camera app. I had set up a small camera a couple of months earlier after some packages went missing around the building. Nothing high-tech, just something basic pointed toward the walkway outside my window and front door. The live feed loaded slowly, and at first everything looked completely normal. The walkway was empty, quiet, barely visible under the weak yellow light spilling from the entrance down the hall. Most of the frame was shadows, nothing unusual. Then in the corner of the screen, something caught my eye. It was faint at first, easy to miss, but once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. A small blinking light. Red. On. Off. On. Off. It stayed in the exact same spot, low to the ground, almost level with my window. I leaned in closer to the screen, squinting, trying to make sense of what I was looking at. When I zoomed in, I couldn't believe what I saw. It wasn't just a light, it was a camera, small, black, and positioned so precisely that there was no doubt about what it was aimed at, my window. For a second, I tried to convince myself it belonged there, that maybe it was part of the building's security or something maintenance had installed. But the more I looked at it, the less that made sense. It wasn't mounted properly. There were no brackets, no wiring, nothing official about it. It looked like it had just been wedged into the corner where the wall met a pipe, like someone had placed it there quickly, just enough to keep it steady. Temporary, and it was pointed directly into my room. I just stared at my phone, my brain trying to catch up with what I was seeing, when something moved in the background of the feed. A shadow further down the walkway, subtle but unmistakable, someone stepping backward, just enough to move out of view. I froze instantly. I didn't move, didn't even breathe properly. I just kept staring at the screen, waiting for something else to happen. Nothing did. The walkway stayed empty, silent, except for that tiny blinking red light in the corner. Watching. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I couldn't turn on any lights, didn't go near the window, didn't even get up from where I was sitting. I just kept refreshing the camera feed over and over, like something might change if I checked it enough times. When morning finally came, I went outside to see it for myself, but the camera was gone. There was nothing. I didn't find any marks on the wall, nothing to suggest anything had ever been there. I walked around the building, checking every corner, every angle, looking for anything out of place. There was nothing. It was like it had never existed. I tried to tell myself I imagined it, that maybe it was just some weird reflection or a trick of the light. But that didn't explain the blinking, or the shadow, or how clearly I had seen it. Later that day, I talked to my neighbor. He lives in the unit right next to mine. Same level, windows facing the same walkway. I asked him if he had noticed anything unusual the night before, trying to keep it casual. He hesitated for a second before answering, and then he said something that made feel like a cold hand grip my heart. "You mean the guy?" I asked him what he was talking about, and he gave me this look, like he wasn't sure how much to say. Then he told me he'd seen someone a few nights before, late, walking slowly along the building, stopping near the windows. Wasn't knocking or something, or trying to get in. Just standing there for a while, then moving on. I asked him why he hadn't reported it, and he just shrugged, like it wasn't a big deal, like he had already made up his mind about it. Probably looking for someone, he said. That didn't make me feel better. If anything, it made it worse. That night, I made sure everything was locked. Curtains fully closed, no gaps, no light getting out. I stayed up again, not even pretending I was going to sleep. And right around the same time, just after 2 a.m., I heard it again. That same sound outside. This time, I didn't grab my phone right away. I sat in the dark listening. The sound stopped after a few seconds, and then I heard something else. A faint scraping noise, like something being adjusted against the wall. Slowly, I picked up my phone and opened the camera app again. The feed loaded, and for a second, everything looked the same as before. The empty, the quiet, nothing there. Then I saw it, the blinking red light, same spot, same angle. The camera was back. I stared at the screen, barely moving, trying to stay completely silent. Then slowly, the image jumped, but not the feed itself. The camera. Someone was adjusting it from outside. The angle tilted slightly upward, inch by inch, until it was no longer aimed at the lower part of the window, but higher, directly into my room, toward me. My chest locked, but I didn't move. I couldn't. Then a hand entered the frame from the side, holding the camera steady while adjusting it, like whoever it belonged to was trying to get the perfect angle. I couldn't see their face, just the hand and part of an arm, but that was enough. I didn't move, didn't react, didn't even look away from the screen. I just stared at it, trying to understand how that was even possible. And then just like that, the camera feed went dark, like it had been shut off from the other side. I stayed there the rest of the night, frozen in place, not touching the curtains, not going anywhere near the window. Morning came again, eventually, and when I went outside, the camera was gone. But this time, something had been left behind. A small piece of tape stuck to the wall, and right next to it, another one, slightly lower, like the camera had been placed there before and then moved. I went back inside, locked everything, and started to think, what am I gonna do about it? I went to my neighbor and told him everything. He went quiet for a second, then looked at me and asked something that didn't sit right at all. He asked, "Do you keep your lights on at night?" I told him sometimes, yeah, not really understanding why it mattered. He just nodded slowly, like he had already figured something out, and said, "Then he probably already saw enough." That scared the shit out of me. What does that mean? Like, had he taken some clips of me and that's it? Was he like a stalker or something? I didn't feel very well after that. But it stopped after that. To this day, it has never happened again. I don't know what to feel, happy that it ended, or violated that he may have some records of me sleeping, or God knows what else. This happened about 2 years ago, right after I moved into a small, slightly worn apartment on the edge of New York City. It wasn't anything remarkable, just a quiet, aging building with a few units on each floor, the kind of place people pass through rather than stayed in. When I signed the lease, the landlord casually mentioned that the apartment next to mine was occupied, though he added that the tenant was the type who kept to himself. At the time, it didn't strike me as important. If anything, it sounded ideal. During my first week there, the silence from that side of the wall was absolute. Not a single footstep, no doors opening or closing, no faint hum of a television, nothing at all. It was so completely still that I began to wonder if the unit was actually empty, or if the man living there simply never came home. The quiet didn't feel unsettling yet. Then one night, at exactly 3 a.m., I woke up to the distinct sound of a door closing. It wasn't mine, and it didn't come from the hallway. It came from the apartment next to me. The sound was soft, but unmistakably real. I lay there in the dark, holding my breath as I listened for anything else. Footsteps, movement, anything to follow it. But nothing came. The silence returned just as quickly as it had been broken. The next morning, everything appeared completely normal. His door was shut, the hallway unchanged, no sign that anything unusual had happened. Still, after that night, I began noticing small details I had overlooked before. His lights were never on during the day, not once. But occasionally, very late at night, I'd catch a faint glow seeping from beneath his door. It wasn't the steady brightness of a lamp or a TV, just a dim flicker, like something small had been turned on briefly before disappearing again. I convinced myself he probably worked night shifts. It made sense, and it was an easy explanation to hold on to. But that explanation started to fall apart one evening when I came home earlier than usual. As I walked down the hallway, I noticed his door was slightly open, just a narrow crack. Not enough to see inside, but enough to let something slip out. I heard a voice. It was quiet, but definitely there. It didn't sound like a conversation. There was no pause, no response, just continuous murmur, like someone repeating something under their breath. I couldn't make out the words, only the tone, flat, unchanging, mechanical in a way that didn't feel natural. I stopped without thinking, listening. The voice didn't react to my presence. It just continued at the same pace, in the same tone, as if I wasn't there at all. After a few seconds, I felt a weird feeling, and I moved on quickly, stepping into my apartment and locking the door behind me. For the next few days, everything returned to that same oppressive quiet. No sounds, no movement, nothing to confirm anyone was there at all. Then the packages started appearing. Boxes left neatly outside his door, some small, others larger, but none of them were ever brought inside. They sat there for days untouched, slowly piling up until it became impossible to ignore. I eventually asked the landlord about it, trying to sound casual. He barely reacted, just waved it off and said the guy comes and goes. But that didn't make sense. I had never seen him, not once, not entering or leaving, not even a shadow under the door. Then one night, everything escalated. I woke up suddenly to a loud thud that echoed through the wall. My eyes snapped open and I checked the time, 4:47 a.m. I stayed completely still listening. A few seconds passed and then I heard it. A dragging sound, like something being pulled across the floor in the apartment next to mine. It went on for several seconds before abruptly stopping. The silence that followed felt thicker than before, almost suffocating. Then came 3 knocks on the wall. I literally froze. I didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't make a sound. My entire body felt locked in place as I stared into the darkness. A few seconds passed. Then I heard a voice, muffled through the wall, as if whoever was speaking was standing right on the other side. "You hear that too?" Every instinct told me to stay silent, and I did. I didn't respond. I didn't even move in bed. The voice didn't repeat the question. It didn't move closer or farther away. It just stopped. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. When morning finally came, I opened my door slowly, cautiously, half expecting something to be wrong. But the hallway looked exactly as it always did. Quiet, empty, unchanged. Except for one thing. All the packages that had been stacked outside his door were gone. Every single one. There was no trace they had ever been there. I was trying to process it, trying to convince myself there had to be a normal explanation. That's when I noticed something on the floor, right in front of my door. A small folded piece of paper. I picked it up, my hands were shaking, and unfolded it. There was only one line written inside, the handwriting messy, like it had been rushed or written in the dark. "It's louder in your place." That was the end of it. I never saw or heard from him again. To this day, I still don't have a reasonable explanation for it. I moved into that apartment for one simple reason. It was cheap. That's it. Didn't have long-term plan, no attachment to the place, just something quick and affordable when I needed it. The building itself was old, the kind you can tell hasn't really been updated in years. 3 floors, thin walls, everything slightly worn down. You could hear footsteps from the unit above, like they were walking around inside your own place, pipes making noise at random times, doors echoing down the hallway. But honestly, I didn't care back then. I just needed somewhere to stay, and it did the job. The first few days were normal, quiet in a way that felt a little strange, but I didn't question it. I only met one neighbor, the guy directly across from me. The first time I saw him was on my second day while I was carrying boxes in. I turned around and his door opened at the exact same moment, like he had been standing there waiting for me to look. He didn't say anything at first, just stared at me in this way that felt a little too focused. Then he smiled, but it didn't feel natural, more like something forced, like he was copying what a normal interaction should look like. He asked if I was new. I said, yeah, just moved in, and he nodded slowly without breaking eye contact. Then he said, if you need anything, I'm always home. I just said thanks and went back inside. I didn't think much of it at the time. For about a week, nothing really happened. But then I started noticing small things that were easy to brush off at first. Like how every time I opened my door, his door would already be slightly open. Not obvious, just cracked enough for someone to look through. At first, I told myself it was coincidence. Bad timing, maybe, but it kept happening. Morning, night, random times throughout the day. It didn't matter. That door was always just barely open. And the weird part was, I never actually saw him open it. It was just already like that whenever I stepped out. Then one night, around 2 a.m., I woke up thirsty and went to the kitchen to get some water. The whole apartment was dead quiet, the kind of silence that makes every small sound stand out. That's when I heard something. A clicking noise, like something lightly tapping against wood. I froze for a second, trying to figure out where it was coming from, and then it hit me. It was my front door. I walked closer, slowly, trying not to make any noise, and as soon as I got near it, the clicking stopped. Just like that. I stood for a few seconds, then leaned in and looked through the peephole. Nothing. The hallway was empty. No movement, no sound. But something felt off. I opened the door quickly, expecting to catch someone there, but there was no one, just silence. Then I looked down without really thinking, and that's when I saw it. A small piece of clear tape stuck right next to the door frame, like something had been there and then taken off. After that, I couldn't ignore it anymore. The next day, I checked the door more carefully and noticed small scratches around the lock, tiny marks I hadn't paid attention to before. That night, I pushed a chair under the handle before going to bed, just in case. A few days passed, and I started avoiding going out as much. I didn't want to run into him again, didn't want to deal with that weird feeling. But eventually, I had to leave. One day I was taking out the trash, and like clockwork, his door opened at the exact moment I stepped into the hallway. Same timing as before. He stepped out, smiling again, that same unnatural expression. "You've been quiet," he said. I just shrugged and told him I'd been busy, trying to keep it short. But then his eyes looked past me, looking straight into my apartment like he was checking something. "You live alone, right?" he asked. That question hit different. I answered yes, but this time my tone was sharper. He nodded slowly again and said, "That's, not always safe." I didn't respond. I just walked away. That night I couldn't sleep. Something about the way he said it didn't sit right. Around 3 a.m., I heard the clicking again, but this time it didn't stop. It kept going. I stayed in my room just listening, not moving, trying to convince myself I was overreacting. Then I heard something else, a slight move, like pressure being applied to the door. I got up slowly, grabbed my phone, and walked halfway down the hallway, but didn't go all the way to the door this time. I stood there watching, and then the handle moved, just a little, slowly like someone was testing it. My chest tightened instantly. I didn't move, didn't make a sound. The chair I had wedged under the handle scraped lightly against the floor as the pressure increased, and that tiny noise was enough. Whoever was on the other side stopped immediately. Complete silence. Then after a few seconds, I heard footsteps, walking away. I didn't open the door that night. I didn't even get close to it again until morning. When I checked the next day, the tape was back. Same spot, like it had been placed there again, carefully. That was enough for me. I called the landlord and told him everything, but he brushed it off like it was nothing. Said it was probably maintenance or something routine. At 3 in the morning. Yeah, that didn't make any sense. I decided right then I wasn't staying another night. I packed as much as I could that same day, just throwing things together, not even caring if it was organized. When I was carrying my last bag out, I noticed something. His door wasn't slightly open anymore. It was wide open, fully open. And inside, there was nothing. No furniture, no lights, no signs that anyone had ever lived there. Just empty space and bare walls. I stood there for a second, trying to process it, when I heard a voice behind me. "You're leaving?" I froze, slowly turned around. He was standing at the end of the hallway, smiling the same way he always did. Same exact expression. I didn't say anything, just nodded. He tilted his head slightly and said, "You should have stayed." That was it. I didn't wait for anything else. I walked straight past him, didn't look back, got to my car, and left. I never went back after that. A few days later, I called the landlord again, this time asking specifically about the unit across from mine, the guy who lived there. There was a pause on the phone, longer than it should have been. And then he said, "There's no tenant registered in that unit." I hung up right after that. I didn't want to hear anything else. But honestly, the worst part isn't the guy, or the door, or even that empty apartment. It's what I found later while unpacking. One of the last boxes, stuff I hadn't gone through yet. I opened it, started pulling things out, and then I saw it. A small piece of clear tape, stuck to the inside of the box.